The shortest war in history lasted around 45 minutes, which is roughly the same length as the Anglo-Zanzibar War. This war was the Anglo-Zanzibar War, which was fought between the Angles and Zanzibaris over a guy named Khalid. The past, the present, the future walked into a bar. It was tense.
For all you dull fellas out there, Zanzibar is an island in the Indian Ocean, and in 1858 became independent from Oman. The epic Brits recognised this, but threatened to blockade the island's trade if Zanzibar didn't abolish slavery in 1873. In 1890, under Sultan Ali, the island became a British protectorate and Britain was allowed to veto any future Zanzibari appointments.
The British signed a treaty with the Germans called the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty, where Germany, who was just next door, recognised British authority in Zanzibar in exchange for Heligoland and some other boring places. This allowed British influence to grow, which didn't sit well with the Sultan's subjects who bitched and moaned constantly, despite the Sultan being cool with the British who gave him 1,000 men to shut the fools up.
Everything was fine and dandy until the 25th of August 1896, when Sayyid Hamid bin Thuwaini died of murder, supposedly, and the infamous Khalid bin Bargash, who was the suspected murderer, stormed into the wooden palace, which was built out of wood in order to become the Sultan without British permission, which he'd done once before, but that one didn't start a war, so who cares.
Khalid was the son of the second Zanzibari Sultan, Bargash bin Said, and was viewed unfavourably by the Britons because he was a violent little fella who didn't like them too much. And there was another man called Hamoud bin Mohammed, who was a massive bootlicker and would do anything the British wanted.
Khalid decided that he didn't want the British having full control over who becomes Sultan. He waddled his fat butt into the palace with his boys, all 2,800 of them. Most of these so-called boys were regular civilians, but he did have some palace guards in there.
The Sultan's firepower consisted of an itchy armpit, several Maxim guns, a Gatling gun, a 17th century bronze cannon, and two 12-pounder field guns, which were a nice little gift from Kaiser Wilhelm II. All of these big fucking guns were pointed at the British Navy. The boys also took over a wooden sloop and the HHS Glasgow, which made up the Zanzibari Navy, which could easily take on the largest navy in the world.
The British also got loads of stuff that I can't be bothered to name. A lot of boats like the HMS Sparrow and the HMS Thrush were lined up ashore to protect British citizens. Future Zanzibari President Arthur Rakes had his troops equipped with two Maxim guns and a 9-pounder cannon. Khalid tried to get the US explorer and diplomat Richard Mahon to recognise his ascension, but Dick said that he couldn't because the Queen didn't.
At 3 PM in the afternoon, a royal salute came from the palace, marking the inauguration of Khalid as Sultan. Resident Consul Basil Cave sent a message to Parliament asking if he could shoot at Khalid if he was being too much of a naughty boy. Two more ships arrived the next day, including the HMS St. George, carrying Rear Admiral Harry Rawson.
Cave then got a message back saying that Queen Vicky authorises the attack. However, he must be 100% sure it will succeed. Cave, being the Chad that he is, knew it would succeed. By the afternoon, all civvy ships, women and children were evacuated and everyone got ready for the very long battle that would ensue. To quote a famous Richard Mahon, the silence which hung over Zanzibar was appalling. Usually drums were beating or babies cried, but that night there was absolutely not a sound.
In the early morn of the last Tuesday of that August, Khalid asked to have a meet and greet with the British, which they refused lest he agree to the terms of an ultimatum which said that he and his boys needed to withdraw from the crib or they would smoke the joint. At 8:30, Cave reaffirmed his lust to shoot Khalid. He responded by saying he didn't think he had the balls.
5 minutes before the hour of 9, the St. George hoisted the signal "Prepare for action," and General Lloyd Matthews told him to fire the bombs. This was what some may call war. Merely 2 minutes later, 3 of the British's ships opened fire on the flimsy, feeble, weak, pathetic, easily destroyed, wooden, flammable, terrible palace. 3,000 people, mostly slaves and defenders, were within the wooden palace, and 500 were killed or wounded from the extreme explosive damage.
The HHS Glasgow, containing a bunch of luxurious and valuable stuff, was sunk, although Khalid probably wasn't too bothered since none of the sultans cared about it. The crew inside was rescued after they quickly surrendered. It's debated on how long Khalid remained in the palace after the contested war began, but he likely didn't stay for very long due to the poor condition of the gaff. At 9:40 anti-meridium, the almost even battle had come out to a peaceful end after an agonizingly long 40 minutes.
The British installed Hamoud bin Mohammed as the new bloke in charge after Khalid fled to the German consulate because he was in exile now. Sultan Hamoud soon met British demands of abolishing slavery. Khalid was soon arrested in 1917 and was banished to St. Helena and then to Seychelles, where he would remain in Mombasa and die on March 18th, 1927. The only injured person on the British side recovered and the island would remain completely conflict-free until 1963 when it was merged with Tanganyika to form the United Republic of Tanzania.
And that's why you should always ask for permission to take over a country, lest you want to cause the deaths of 500 of your homies. Peace and love.
dances and the audience applaud.